We have always heard that Francisco Alvarez was the catcher of the future for the New York Mets, but he's proven to be the catcher of the present. Has he earned the starting job moving forward? We'll discuss that and another Mets loss on today's edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. A championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same goes with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, ebaymotors.com. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. Now, the Mets had another rough game on Tuesday, and it all began with Max Scherzer being scratched with the start due to neck spasms. Once again, Scherzer's season cannot get off on a good footing. We had seen a report over the weekend about the lingering issue with his scapula. It's a shoulder injury, but he's pitching through it. He thinks that, he's fighting like hell, in his words, to stay off the injured list, and then he gets scratched from the next start. And you just wonder, are these issues kind of compounding on each other? Is this something where because he's trying to compensate for the shoulder, the neck issue comes up? It's a guy that's had back injuries, now neck injuries. He is in his late 30s, and this is supposed to be your ace. And so because he can't go, you have to take David Peterson and fly him from pitching in Syracuse all the way to Cincinnati and just put him in a bad spot, honestly, where we can already get into another rough outing for him, and I will be diving into that, but he also was not put in a position to succeed, and here's a guy that sort of needs to be in Syracuse to try to find himself, and now you're back in the big league starting, and he struggles. And the Mets are in an immediate hole, and he doesn't make it out of the fourth inning, and he gives up 4 runs, and you're in an uphill battle for the rest of the game. And that's the story. Again, starting pitching, whether it be injuries or underperformance, or in this case both, leads to a Mets loss and leads to taxing your bullpen, putting so much pressure on your lineup to score. And to their credit, they actually did battle back in this game, but you are just, again, fighting a losing battle when you get nothing from your starting rotation, which we discussed throughout the entire show yesterday. David Peterson, this one, gives up 7 hits, 4 earned, walks 2, 4 strikeouts, goes 3 1/3. 7.68 ERA now in the season. He threw 87 pitches, only 49 of them for strikes, so 42 of them were balls. And that's the problem. He falls behind in counts. This is still a guy that is getting a lot of strikeouts. His strikeout per 9 is high. One of the highest for a starting pitcher in baseball right now, but it doesn't matter when you're walking too many guys, when you're putting yourself in bad counts, and then you have to try to throw strikes because you are in bad counts and you're getting way too much of the plate, and you become very hittable, and the Reds can tee off on you. And unfortunately, that's what happened again. And you look at Peterson this season, he's 1-5, and the Mets have lost 6 of his 7 starts. It's just been a disaster, okay? And he's one of the biggest reasons why they're in this position right now, because every time they give him the ball, they lose, essentially. So I hate to see it because I was so high on Peterson coming into the season, but boy, has it been ugly. Now, the Mets were losing 3-0 the first 2 innings. They get a home run from Francisco Alvarez. Top of the third, he goes opposite field. Love to see it. Second of the season. 4th inning, David Peterson once again falters, gives up a couple doubles. They pull him. They go to Steven Nogosek, who's actually been great this year quietly until today, until the bullpen was taxed to a point where they got to try to get an extra inning out of him. And after he's able to, evade a disaster inning for Peterson, limit the damage, right? He goes back out there in the 5th after the Mets were 1-2-3 in the top. In the bottom half, he gives up a couple of hits. And now, granted, the Reds here are fortunate because there was a play where Will Myers knocked the ball out of Francisco Lindor's glove. Actually, he knocked the ball before he even got to Lindor's glove, and this led to Buck Showalter being ejected. Horrible play, horrible call, which leads to that down inning. I'm not necessarily looking at Nogasek now and saying, oh yeah, this guy can't pitch, because look, he got the first out of the inning. I believe that was a pretty nice catch by Starling Marte, to be honest, but still got an out. Will Myers has a soft single. It was a swing bunt. Then you get a ground ball that should be a double play ball potentially. You had the runner going on the play, I think. And so Will Myers sees that the ball is coming his way. You see him identify the baseball. Then he basically pulls an A-Rod and swats at Lindor's glove, and the ball hits his hand before it gets to Lindor. So, bare minimum, Will Myers should be ruled out. Realistically, that could have been a double play if he doesn't sweep down on the ball and he just slides into the base. Lindor likely catches the grounder with his foot on the bag or puts the tag on and throws the first double play ball. You're out of the inning. Mets win this game. That's what Buck Showalter was at. He gets ejected. And then you have a RBI triple that scores both of those runners. And then later a sacrifice fly, 7-1 Reds, and ends up being the difference in the game. But you got to give the Mets credit. They showed a lot of resilience. Francisco Alvarez hits a home run on the top of the sixth. That is now 3 home runs, 2 of them in this game for Alvarez. His numbers, we're going to get into them in the next segment, have been great lately. Mets don't do anything more in that inning. They get through the 6th inning. Jeff Brigham, solid inning for them. Pete Alonso homers, 12th of the year. Good to see him finally hit another homer. You have Brett Beatty draws a walk. Starling Marte gets a hit. Daniel Vogelbach draws a walk. So you have a bases-loaded situation, perfect opportunity to get back in the game. And Mark Canha grounds into a double play ball. Brutal. Brutal. Kills a rally. And, ultimately, that was kind of one of the big moments that defined the game for the Mets. They end up scoring 2 more in the 8th. Nimmo gets hit by a pitch. Lindor homers. But that was as close as they would get. Now, they had another rally in that inning where Alonso drew a walk. You had Starling Marte get a 2-out hit. Daniel Vogelbach draws a walk as well to load the bases. They go to Louis Guillorme as a pinch hitter because Mark Canha's last time with the bases loaded, he into that double play ball, facing Alexis Diaz. Of course, Edwin Diaz's little brother. And Guillorme, check swing, strike 3. I thought he didn't go. It is what it is. And in the 9th, Diaz was good and ball game. Mets lose. I appreciate the fight that the Mets showed in this one. I appreciate the way the lineup is coming together. And Francisco Alvarez had an incredible game. We're going to discuss him more in a minute here. But again, what defines you is a couple of moments. One, it's a play that just doesn't go the Mets' way, and that's been their season so far with that bang-bang play and the call that gets Buck Showalter ejected. But it's the starting pitching putting them in a hole. And it's the bullpen, having to be tasked to carry a larger portion of the game than your starter again. And now that puts you behind the 8 ball for the rest of this series. We're going to discuss that in a minute. Carrasco making his first rehab start, the Scherzer situation, and a lot on Alvarez. Before we get to any of it, though, today's episode is brought to you by Sorare. Our new sponsor, Sorare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace transforming fans into owners with official licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 teams. Unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, Sorare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards, and there's no cost to play. Plus, the more you win, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next-level competitions and rewards. Sorare MLB managers who rank at the top or near the top of the leaderboards get the chance at those rewards like Sorare scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, and even VIP experiences like meeting MLB stars. Prizes may vary depending on the competition. Head to sorare.com/lockedon, that's spelled SORARE.com, to draft your team of free player cards, set up your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. Carlos Carrasco is making his way back to the Mets. Pitched 3 innings in Double-A tonight. Walked 1, 3 hits allowed, 1 strikeout, 1 earned run. Threw 33 pitches, 23 of them being strikes. He said, quote, everything came out really good. All the breaking balls, especially the changeup. I was looking for my delivery and I found it. He said that he's ready, but he's not going to make that decision. He said, I'll hear from what's the next step, and we'll go from there. I hate to be on the IL. I just want to get ready to get back there and help the team. Now, with Max Scherzer dealing with this neck injury, the Mets rotation once again is in this position of being in flux. You got Justin Verlander going game 2, Kodai Senga game 3. Scherzer could be available this weekend. Best case scenario, that's why he's not on the IL yet. Maybe he pitches against the Nationals. You had McGill and Lucchesi slated to start the first 2 games of that series. Maybe you get Scherzer in his regular spot in the rotation on Sunday. Maybe you get Carlos Carrasco. Now, Carrasco only threw 33 pitches, though. So how many pitches does he have? Is he going to be up to 50, 60 next time? Is he at 45? I just don't know. He says he's ready, but is he ready to throw a full pitch load? Probably not. Now, you could piggyback him. Let's just say Scherzer's going to hit the IL, and they're going to put him on the 15-day IL and just let him rest everything, and hopefully comes back better. Well, now David Peterson's suddenly staying in your rotation. Do you want to call Carrasco back on that day and piggyback those two because you've gotten no length from Peterson? I don't know. If Scherzer's still dealing with some of this and you're not sure if you're going to get full length out of him, do you bring Carrasco up and put him in the bullpen and say, all right, either we're going to need you or you're going to throw your pitches after the starter's out? Is that something they consider? I don't know, but at least you're getting Carlos Carrasco back soon, because even though he was bad to start the season, I'm interested to see a veteran like him, if he's feeling right now and he's got himself in a good spot where he thinks his breaking pitches are there, his changeups there. Maybe, just maybe, he can turn back the clock to last year where he was effective more times than not and give you some quality starts, because the Mets certainly haven't gotten any of that throughout this season. So we'll see if you get him back. But I want to spend the remainder of this show talking about Francisco Alvarez, because what he is doing right now is he is taking this starting catcher job and he's not letting go of it. And the Mets really had no other option. Tomas Nido is off to a terrible start this year with the bat. And I think at this point, Nido is Kodai Senga's personal catcher. And when Omar Narvaez comes back, that could be the role that he fills. Because Francisco Alvarez is too good to take out of the starting lineup. He's too much of a difference maker with the bat. Tomas Nido and Omar Narvaez were never going to hit 2 home runs in a game this year. Hell, they might not have hit 2 home runs all season. Okay? And Alvarez started off slow, but you look at what he's done through his first 19 games this season. He's hitting 241, 281 on base, 441 slug, weighted runs created plus, measures hitters based on a league average of 100. He has a 101 WRC plus right now, which means he has now, with a 2 home run game, obviously buoying that and making those numbers, jump significantly, of course, in a small sample size. Still, though, he has got himself to be an average hitter in the big leagues, and for a catcher, that's well above average. And his defensive metrics, we will get to in the next segment, have been great as well. That's the biggest thing. His glove has always trailed behind. His bat has kind of pushed him promotion by promotion. And I've said it before, suddenly the glove is what got him here, because the Mets needed another catcher with Narvaez going down. And the bat had to catch up. And the bat, we always knew, could catch up quickly, and it has. And the glove is standing out to the point where Buck Showalter has no excuse to just play him every day, outside of maybe, again, the Senga starts where you'll see a Tomas Nido. But here's the deal with him offensively. First 4 starts, 1 for 15, 6 strikeouts, no walks. Didn't look good, okay? Over his last 14 games played, though, since April 19th, where he's starting to get consistent playing time, Francisco Alvarez has gone 12 for 39, 308 average, 357 on base, 590 slug, again, buoyed by the 2 home runs tonight. But this is the type of player that he can be. He can be a difference maker from the catcher position offensively, of the likes the Mets have not seen since Mike Piazza. It's not to say he's going to be Mike Piazza, because that is asking to be the greatest hitting catcher of all time. But he has a chance here to be really, really special and all around. I mean, again, we'll get to the defensive stuff, but he is holding his own there, and he just showed you today. He went oppo. He pulled the home run. He's starting to give you better at-bats. He is not chasing as much. He's, going to the plate with an approach, and we've seen this from Alvarez throughout his minor league career. he gets promoted to high A after, being Barry Bonds in his whatever it was, 2 weeks in low A in 2021. He actually continued that where he was really, really good for his first month. And then he really struggled in the middle of that season. But then he found his footing and got himself to a great point to close out the year. And then 2022 rolls around Double A. He's awesome to start it off. Then he hits a blip. He struggles for a while. Having the league adjust to him. He's trying to make that adjustment back. Figures it out. Is amazing. And the Mets had to promote to AAA because it seems like his bat is too advanced to hit in AA last year. Goes to AAA. Struggles. Isn't getting off to a good start. Ends up having an injury. Comes back in September and is amazing to close out his season. Gets the call to the majors. Now, he was obviously rushed. Wasn't ready. They put him in a bad spot last year. This year, he's called up. They don't give him the consistent playing time to start. But now that they have, he's getting his feet wet. And the thing is, Francisco Alvarez, he might still at this point go up against the Atlanta Braves. And they might have their high-end pitching where he'll face a Spencer Strider who can attack him up in the zone with fastballs, and they'll get into their bullpen, and he'll have at-bats against Raisel Iglesias. And he just might not be ready for all that. But you have him starting in series where he's facing off against Luke Weavers of the world, and he can go up and face a Reds pitching staff or a Nationals pitching staff. Suddenly, he's getting at bats against guys similar to who he feasted on in the minor leagues, and he can put up big, big numbers for you while still being a guy that is commanding the pitching staff incredibly well, not just for his age, in general right now. And that's what I want to go through next. The catching stats have been awesome for Alvarez. Before we get into it, though, another word from our sponsors. Now, it is really early in the season. The sample size is not too large yet. But Francisco Alvarez right now is grading out as the third best pitch framer in all of baseball behind Jonah Heim and Sean Murphy. He is getting his strike rate at 51.3%. Now put that into perspective, Tomas Nido right now is at 47.2%. You look at the best catchers in the game. Austin Hedges, his strike rate's at 55.5%. Cam Gallagher, 55%. Joey Bart at 53.7%. And then you go to Jake Roger, 52.6, Sean Murphy, 52.1, Christian Vasquez, 52.1. Then you get to Alvarez at 51.3. So based on strike rate, he's seventh best. Based on catcher framing runs, he is third best. And, he is ranking as an elite pitch framer. When you look at the zones where he is effective as a catcher, you're looking at the upper quadrants of the plate. He has been really good. You look at, the bottom quadrant, he's been really good. So, on the outside part of the plate, he's maybe struggled a little bit to get that pitch when you have a righty up. But overall, the catching framing has not been an issue. The idea that he'd be a bad receiver, it's just not there. Now, when it comes to calling a game and all those nuances, I'm not going to pin the struggles as a team when it comes to the pitchers on Francisco Alvarez. I don't know how much he calls the game. I don't know how much the coaches call the game. I don't know how much the pitchers call the game. But I'm not going to put that specifically on him. What he is doing well right now is he's framing well, he's blocking well, and his pop time is also grading out in the 75th percentile. So everything that we can measure from a catcher, he's grading out as above average. And whether or not you are losing a little bit when it comes to having a veteran behind the dish or him, I really don't think that is the case. And the ability to hit 2 home runs in a game kind of supersedes any marginal loss you might be getting. And again, I don't think there is. I think if anything, he's proven to be a benefit behind the plate. And that's where it's becoming impossible to put him on the bench. Granted, I don't think he'll catch Kodai Senga starts. I think Tomas Nido has those, kind of locked up for now. And that's fine. Senga's been good with Nido. Let's not mess with that, the one starting pitcher that's been effective throughout the season. But I'm starting Nido, the other 4/5 of the rotation. I'm not starting Nido, I'm starting Alvarez, the other 4/5 of the rotation, and having him catch almost every day. And if he gets on a heater, and what he's done recently continues, where he's hitting over 300 and he's starting to run into some homers, I wouldn't mind DHing him when he's not catching. if the bat continues to go, man, let him run with this job because you're not getting this production from any other catcher on this roster. And I know the Mets just signed Gary Sanchez on a minor league deal, and Mets fans freaked out about that, which I'm not going to spend too much time on. Look, any minor league signing is a no-risk situation for them. And here's the guy that hit the ball hard last year that has a little bit of upside. Doesn't hurt, okay? Does not hurt at all. Gary Sanchez, despite what New York fans might think about him, is better than, Ali Sanchez, or name your third string catcher that you'd put on the Syracuse Mets. Okay, there's just no downside in that one, but I digress on it. Overall, though, what Francisco Alvarez has done is he has grabbed this job, and unless he goes through a prolonged slump or suddenly the defense falls off a cliff, when Omar Narvaez comes back, he is still the starter in my eyes. And Narvaez can get some time, of course, whether it be Corday Senga starts or giving Alvarez the occasional blow, but he is the catcher of the future and he's the catcher of the present, and I don't see him giving up this job for a very, very long time. Unless Kevin Parada is just awesome, but we'll worry about that another day. That's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. Hopefully, for all you everydayers, we will have a win to discuss tomorrow with Justin Verlander on the hill. But until then, that'll be all. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Follow me on Twitter @FinkelsteinRyan and follow the show at Locked On Mets.